Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing great out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and an awesome week out there so far. Here, bringing the latest on multiple things in this morning's video. The first thing we'll cover is the tropics. We'll spend some time talking about Oscar, not a whole lot of time, but this system could bring impacts to like Newfoundland, Atlantic Canada, so we will speak on it a little bit. But outside of that, the majority of this update on the tropics is going to be discussing a solid model signal that continues to somewhat rise each and every day as we get closer to this time frame, which I'm thinking it'll be later this month, which, we're pretty much starting to get to the later portion of the month now, but the last maybe few days of October, the first several days of November for the Caribbean, I'm watching the possibility of a tropical system that could develop down here. Now, who is it going to impact? What is it going to be? We're not quite sure, but we're going to spend some time on model guidance from overnight into this morning on that. After we get done doing that, we'll speak on another storm system I'm watching, but over the U.S., same time frame, end of October, beginning of November. We have not had any significant severe weather. We're well into a secondary severe weather season, but we haven't had any big time events or anything like that. I'm watching a system that could bring some dynamic weather as we make our way to the end of October, beginning of November. So we'll speak on that, and then we'll cover what's going to happen weather-wise across the entire lower 48 for your Tuesday. It'll be a pretty quiet day of weather, so we'll speak on that. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others have the opportunity to do so too. So let's talk about the tropics first. As always, let's make sure this is going to work for us, and it is, so we're good to go. So this is what's left over of Oscar. It does not look like a tropical system anymore, but technically still a tropical storm. This is it, the actual center of the system, more so down here. But this is going to continue to race off across the North Atlantic, or maybe more so this way. Bermuda is this little pink speck right here. Could bring some unsettled weather for you folks, but nothing you guys can't handle. Maybe some breezy conditions, some rain. But we need to watch this system as it continues to move maybe a little bit closer to like Atlantic Canada, so we'll speak on that. The remnants of Nadine made its way across Central America and is now Tropical Storm Christy right here in the Eastern Pacific. So interesting development with that, which, that's not really taking us by surprise. We expected this to have another shot to develop once it got back over the ocean waters, this being the Pacific Ocean. But right down the middle here, this area pretty quiet. In fact, it's very quiet in the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico right at this second. So that's what's going on currently. Let's continue to move forward. We'll spend a little bit of time on Oscar here. So if you're not interested in this portion of the video, definitely utilize those timestamps. But I want to cover this for my folks in Bermuda and Atlantic Canada because I know I have viewers in like Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, etc. So Oscar, 40-mile-per-hour tropical storm. It will completely lose its tropical characteristics and go post-tropical over the next couple days. It's already in the process of doing so right now. And it's saying by the time we get into, 2 p.m. tomorrow, this is a 40-mile-per-hour post-tropical system. Now, this could completely lose its tropical characteristics and just pretty much be a low pressure out here in the North Atlantic. And even though the cone stops here, this system can continue to chug across the North Atlantic and eventually make its way and affect Newfoundland. But this is the latest cone that we got right now. Let's go over some model guidance. So this is what's left over of Oscar. Watch as it continues to move north. Now we're getting into this evening, tomorrow. We start to get all the way into Thursday morning. A trough is trying to dig down here across Canada. In fact, it is. It's actually going to nip portions of the Northeast too. This could actually help give this low a boost, so it actually begins to deepen, but it's not tropical anymore. Just one of those extratropical systems, if you will, and this starts to get very close to Newfoundland. In fact, I think at least is going to bring some rain. So this is what's left over of Oscar. Let's get a little bit closer for my friends up here in Atlantic Canada. I know I haven't talked about you guys in a while. Definitely missed y'all. Hope y'all are doing well. Well, we start out for Thursday morning, October the 24th, here in the next couple days. And here it comes, a big slug of moisture. Heavy rain starts to impact maybe even like Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia. Definitely rams right into the southern shorelines of Newfoundland. This continues. Does the actual low pressure make landfall? Not sure, but I think impacts will be there. Am I expecting this to be some monster storm system, high-end significant event? I don't think so. But definitely something equivalent to maybe like a nor'easter, a moderate nor'easter. But we get into Friday. This is bringing gusty winds, some heavy rain to you folks. And then by the time we're into Saturday morning, this clears on out and then cooler air moves in. Now, if I go and look at the GFS, for example, what does this show? Let's back this up a little bit. And we'll actually have to back it up a little bit more. Here comes the GFS. Same thing. We're getting into Thursday. Big slug of moisture impacts Newfoundland. Okay, and then the low pressure looks like it moves a little bit further east compared to the Euro, but brings a lot of rain. Not as much for like Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, etc. I don't think this will get all the way to like New Brunswick or anything like that, but certainly brings a whole lot of rain to certainly like especially southeast Newfoundland. So definitely be aware of this. Some gusty winds, heavy rain, and we will talk more specific on the impacts for you folks over the next couple of days and try to keep you guys a little bit more aware than just this basic information that I'm giving you. So now going forward here, let's talk about the little bit of chatter. If you are somewhat active in the weather community and definitely more aware than maybe you're just your average person that, just only worries about the weather when it affects them, which is most people. Not making any disses on anybody like that. I know that, that's just a common thing out here, but there's a little bit of chatter out here about one last push of hurricane season. It's a favorable MJO phase of rising air that's going to move right over this area. You combine that with the fact that the sea surface temperatures are still warm. It's still technically hurricane season, and we have a shot for tropical activity. So we're going to start all this model guidance for Saturday morning, this coming Saturday morning, October the 26th. Nothing's going on. I want you to keep your eyes down here in the Caribbean, though. We're going to look at the OOZ GFS first, and then we'll take a look at the latest O6Z, which is running right now. We start to get into Sunday, not a whole lot of anything. We get into next Monday. We're 6 days out, so getting kind of far out at this point, but you're starting to see a lot of moisture bubbling up down here. Okay, last few days of October, and then all of a sudden a low pressure develops south of Jamaica as we're getting into late next Tuesday into Wednesday. And now, granted, we're 7 to 8 days out. Okay, we're already kind of in an unreliable time frame, but what we look for in this range is, can we get some sort of agreement with model guidance in this specific time frame? GFS is quite aggressive, develops this into an all-out tropical storm, brings a lot of impacts, is very slow moving to Jamaica. Okay, we need to watch areas like Jamaica right now. I'm not trying to freak anybody out, but this is definitely, you're definitely in the Caribbean, and this is where model guidance likes something developing. It develops this into pretty much a hurricane that makes a landfall really far out, guys. I want to note this is all the way into next Friday, and then, of course, just moves across all of Cuba, barely weakens, and then brings an all-out hurricane across the Bahamas. But look how far out we are. We're all the way into the afternoon, November 4th, 330 hours out. But it does show a scenario that's, you never want to say worst case, but it's a pretty bad case scenario. This wants to kind of almost pull somewhat of like a sandy path, take this, do some weird steering here, and then gets pulled back into the mid-Atlantic and the upper southeast. Now, some people are going to say this, and I can already see it, and I'll already see it now. What's up with these weird, why are they being steered these weird directions? Like, people are wondering about Oscar. Folks, when you start to get late, and some people, you can't tell them any different. They just want to believe that everything's weird, everything's odd. But when you start to get late in a hurricane season, you get troughs, you get cold fronts to dig deeper down into the U.S. The flow around these troughs are much different. The placement of high pressure is different. Things are just different steering current wise once you get late in hurricane season, deep in October, early November. So it's not odd. It's not weird. You just have different steering influences out there deeper into hurricane season. These troughs come down. They kind of these upper troughs can pull it inward. They can pull it this way. They can push it out. Things just get different. I wouldn't call it odd or weird. It just gets different this time of the year. So I just want to throw that out there. Just remember that, it's not as cut and dry as it is kind of in the middle of hurricane season. So that's the GFS. Now, what about the GFS right now, for example? Let's go to the O6Z. What is it showing? So we're going to start this off. Let's back it up a little bit. We're going to start this off for this coming Monday morning. Has a low pressure. You see, there's just lower pressure down here. Nothing like concrete or anything like that. But you got a low pressure, very broad, developing deep down the Caribbean. It finally gets its act together okay, in the same area, just a little bit later than the OOZ GFS, and we have a tropical storm, and this is as far out as we can go on the latest GFS. And this is as far out as we really need to go. This takes us all the way pretty much out to the morning of November 1st, and we have a tropical storm, borderline hurricane really close to Jamaica. Where does this get pulled after that? It's a big question, but those two GFS runs show something down here. What about the Euro? Euro is typically more conservative, but it's the European, one of the best models out there, definitely worth looking at. So we start to get into this weekend. We get into Monday, next Monday, the 28th, just a lot of green, nothing really forming. We get into Wednesday, we get into next Thursday, and then we get all the way into next Thursday evening. Folks, nothing develops. Looks like you got some sort of low over here trying to develop, but nothing comes together. Sometimes, a lot of times, the Euro is late to the game, though. What about the Canadian? Same thing. We'll start off Saturday morning, this coming Saturday. You start to see a lot of tropical energy down here. And guys, don't get me wrong here. The Canadian model is not the best model for the tropics, but it's model guidance. You see if it has something similar to the other models. So we keep this going. We get about 8 or 9 days out. There's a low pressure developing down here. Here it comes. And we take it all the way to 10 days out. You got a tropical storm around Jamaica once again. Okay. What about the Euro AI model, which, by the way, has done pretty well Saturday morning, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Have a lot of energy down here, a lot of green, but nothing really developing. And then we take it all the way to 10 days out, and nothing's there. No tropical storm here in Jamaica, but it does finally develop something very weak here in near the Turks Caicos Islands, but it's past 10 days out, folks. It's hard to pay too much attention to that. So one thing you look at a lot at this range, because we're talking pretty far out, is the ensembles, okay? The GEFS, the GFS ensembles, makes up 21 members. So you're going to see a loud signal from the OOZ GEFS really blossom right here in the Caribbean, okay? And we keep this going here. We get into Monday morning. We get into Tuesday morning. You see all these numbers down here and how the screen is beginning to brighten up from that kind of more muted blue to this yellowish tint down here. This means that more low pressure, stronger low pressures are showing up. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to have 21 tropical storms. This is an ensemble run, and in this case, this output, it puts all the members. There's different ways to look at this, but in this case, it puts all the members that develops on this specific run on an output for us, on the screen for you. So you got like a 96 right here, 98 might be pretty blurred on your screen, but that's basically a 998 low, 996. You see 07, that's 1007. Okay, millibar low. Now you keep this going all the way to about 10 days out. You have a pretty loud signal for tropical development. This is the last day of October, Halloween. Pretty loud signal down here, guys. Some very strong members, some weak members, but a lot of members. That's why the screen goes from the yellow to the orange. And then watch how everything just kind of goes crazy, goes haywire here once you get past 10 days. And you got some members wanting to come way over here. You got members dancing around back here, but a lot of them are right here in the Caribbean. And everything begins to split. That's a loud signal for sure. Now the EPS from overnight, the European Ensemble, this makes up 51 members. Okay, not as crazy, but you still get this signal deep down here in the Caribbean near Central America. But there's just not a lot of members. There's some strong members, but there's not a lot. But you certainly have a signal down here, just not as loud as the GEFS. Okay, now we do have, let's see if we have the 06Z running. And yeah, this only goes out 138 hours out. So we don't have the entirety of that run. So we'll see what that shows. I make these videos pretty early if you're, viewing right now. But if you're a first-time viewer, so sometimes I don't have all the data from the morning runs. But yeah, that's an update on the tropics. We need to watch this area. We really do. So going forward, I am watching the potential for a significant storm system somewhere in the country over the next several days, the end of October, maybe the beginning of November. Now, we're going to start this from Friday morning. A lot of zonal flow out here. You see a big blob of reddish, orange, salmon color, whatever you want to call it. This is high pressure just basically a massive zonal ridge. And you see, this blue up here, that is low pressure, a trough, an upper trough, depending on if it's cut off or not, a cutoff low. This typically brings unsettled weather, a dip in the jet, and a cold front associated with it. So we continue to keep this going. It looks like the general pattern over the next several days is most of the energy is going to stay up in Canada. Now, as we get into this weekend, a trough could dig down to the northeast, bring some unsettled weather, bring a shot of cool air. It could bring us a little bit of cool air even as far south as the southeast as we get some cold air damming. But look at this tall ridge that builds all the way up into Canada right here, right? This is going to bring well above average temperatures in this entire area. But what I want you to notice here is the blue showing up at the corner of your screen. That's a trough of low pressure and a huge dip in the jet stream here on the Euro. All right, this thing is digging pretty aggressively. This is our first, I would say, significant trough dig of the fall season. Moving in, this thing is digging big time, okay? The jet's getting pushed, this mid-level jet's getting pushed all the way down here, and you're going to get low pressures that have the opportunity to kind of ride down the base of this trough, eject across the middle of the country, and bring multiple storm system opportunities across the base of this trough as this trough continues to progress eastward or eventually eject. We got a big ridge building across the eastern U.S. into eastern Canada the last few days of October. But we keep this going here, and watch this. You see how kind of the isobars right here kind of ripple? Like right into here, that tells me you have some sort of low pressure, unsettled weather at the base of this trough, and you keep this going. This is a big storm system potentially, and then we could have more energy down here. So you're probably asking, what does this mean, Mitch? Well, that means that blue unsettled weather, ridge, calm weather, calm weather most of the time, above average temperatures, unsettled weather, this brings some sort of storm system and likely a cold front with it. So this big blue blob you're seeing on here could bring a significant storm system the last few days of October. Now the GFS is a little bit more progressive about it. It's not as aggressive, but it's certainly something we watch. And if we look at the EPS and the GEFS, the EPS, one of the most reliable model things that you can look at out there in the world. This is the morning of October 29th. Tall ridge in the eastern U.S., bringing above average temperatures. Big time trough digging down right here. And what happens right in the middle of this? Weather. Sometimes significant weather. Okay, you got a flow around this ridge going like this. This will bring in moist air right into this area. And then you have just unsettled weather with areas of energy shooting at the base of this trough. Okay, that low meets that moist air. You're probably going to have some sort of severe weather opportunity. And then on the colder side of this, you'll probably have some sort of storm system. Could bring an early season winter storm. Something. It depends on what kind of cold air we have working with this. And then you look at the GEFS ensemble, it's a similar look in the same time frame, except this is a little bit more progressive. You see the tilt to this is kind of going like this. This tells us this is a little bit more positively tilted, a weaker trough, but that could eventually get negative or neutral. And then we got a more flattened out ridge over the eastern U.S. So this will bring some sort of storm system. What is it going to bring? Not quite sure. Of course, it'll start by bringing unsettled weather across this area, and then it'll move into this area. Okay. And if we take a look at the Euro, what the unsettled weather could look like, we'll kind of zoom through this pretty quick, but, this is starting Saturday morning, already a lot of rain, even higher elevation snow moving in. Then we move into Sunday, Monday, and check out the snow over the higher elevations of the Rockies. Not a big deal this time of the year, but this starts to move into kind of the central high plains and the central Rockies. We could have a significant winter weather event, maybe across Colorado, Wyoming. It's very possible. And then we'll just have multiple areas of energy in this side, this trough that continues. Doesn't look like that big of a deal. The thing I'm watching is the middle of the country. Big system comes down. If something like the Euro happens, you're going to have a pretty strong low, with maybe other areas of low pressures kind of riding south of this. But this is a pretty strong low, a 982 millibar low about a week from this morning. If there's enough cold air to work with this, maybe a little bit of snow on this side, but you always got to watch. And, we're pretty much into secondary severe weather season. Does any kind of thunderstorm development get going right into this region? With this low pressure developing right here, ejecting across the Rockies, you're going to have moist air feeding into this area. and you're probably going to have a favorable kinematic wind field, kinematic meaning wind energy, for the overlapping of ingredients for severe weather. Even though you don't really see anything but some splotches of green, there could be severe weather right there. I'm watching next Tuesday or Wednesday, something like that. And then this low could bring an opportunity for weather, I would say, across central and even the eastern U.S. eventually. Okay, we've been talking about how dry it's been. It's been very dry, miserably dry. And for a lot of areas, it's going to remain dry. And just to look at that mid-level jet, guys, here it comes on the Euro. It digs down here, and you see all these colors right here thinking, man, what does this mean? Well, I mean, that's like an 80 to 90, maybe close to 100 knot mid-level jet. So these are winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere going pretty fast. This provides a lot of lift for thunderstorm and just activity here, and a lot of wind energy. So you got to watch for the ingredients for something significant in this area. Is Mitch trying to say a severe weather outbreak is going to happen early to midway next week? I'm not, but this pattern kind of supports it. So we'll continue to watch this. Moving on to what's happening weather-wise today, we do have some unsettled weather. I wouldn't even call it unsettled. I mean, it's probably much needed, but some, light, moderate, maybe at times heavy rain moving across areas of the Midwest here. We got most of our weather that's kind of pushed off to the north. This is really from what's left over of that cutoff low. But we're getting beneficial rain falling across North Dakota, areas of northern Minnesota. This energy will dive down to the Great Lakes region later today and bring some much needed rain for sure for you folks. But everybody else is quiet. As far as watches, warnings, and advisories, freeze warnings, a couple freeze watches, some high wind warnings. But outside of that, guys, it's pretty quiet. Excessive rainfall below 5%. So it doesn't even show up on the map here. And then severe weather today, it drops off. I mean, you might get a marginal risk that gets issued from one of these general risks, but a chance of some thunderstorms up here in the green, Duluth, northern Minnesota, the Midwest, and then maybe an area here in the hill country of Texas. So as far as the weather for the southeast today, it's the same as yesterday. Could get some thunderstorm activity that kind of moves east to west across the peninsula of Florida. Do not expect any kind of washout. There's Oscar right here at the bottom of your screen. Moving on ahead, we could get a shower or downpour into the Outer Banks, but man, the rest of the southeast continues to be dry. I'm starting to lose count of how many days it's been without rain here in my house. But the northeast, dry this morning, dry this afternoon, overnight tonight, pretty quiet. We're gonna watch a storm system that does try to enter the picture as we're getting into tomorrow. But over the next 24 hours, it's pretty quiet weather, folks. The south central U.S., quiet also, not a whole lot going on. I want to mention, I haven't been making the timestamps for southeast, northeast, south central, north central. You probably got some people like, Mitch, that's really annoying. That helps me out so much. But we're able to move through the daily forecast so fast that if I was to put timestamps up for each geographical region, they would only be like 10 to 15 seconds apart. And I just think that's a little bit overkill with the timestamps when we can just roll through the daily forecast so fast when the weather is just quiet. I mean, it is really quiet. The north central U.S., there's that little bit of leftover energy for the Midwest. This could bring some showers like to Rockford, Illinois, Janesville, Wisconsin. This might make it all the way to Chicago and Milwaukee. And then just some more, I would say, heavier rain up here is possible in the northern sections of Minnesota. This rain will try to make it to northern Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan this evening. Could be a wet evening for you folks. Much needed rain for sure. And then maybe a little cool air moves in behind this. Check out the snow tomorrow morning on the northern side of Lake Superior. Maybe some flurries entering the picture here in northern sections of Minnesota. But anyways, moving into the western U.S., very quiet weather. There's really absolutely nothing to speak on out here. It's quiet. It's quiet. I think that'll change as we get to the last few days of October, as I mentioned earlier in the video. Temperatures across the eastern U.S., I mean, it's warming up all the way to Maine. Could hang on to a little bit cooler conditions in northern Maine, but a cold front will be sweeping through the upper Midwest today. You know, for example, the northern sections of Minnesota, 40s. But you get down to Minneapolis, you're well into the 70s, getting pretty warm across the middle of the country. Everybody's starting to warm on back up. I mean, some 80s now are into the picture as the ridge builds in. A little shot of cool air for the high plains, but this won't last as a ridge will flex back into the area. But relatively cool out west, nothing too crazy one way or the other. So that's all I got, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and have a wonderful day. Talk to you soon.